Hi guys and welcome to the Moore Show. Now you may be wondering why there's no introduction for this video, purely because this was a show that the footage got damaged and we never thought we'd be able to recover it. We've been able to recover the last, I think, 38 minutes of the show, but the guy was so interesting that I thought, you know what, we've recovered it, let's just release the last 38 minutes of the interview. Now, this was done many years ago when I was based in Cardiff, but at Radio Cardiff, when I was doing my show from there. And this gentleman's called Thomas Campbell, and he's a physicist, conscious researcher, and author of the My Big Toe trilogy, an international lecturer. He describes the nature of our reality and provides a sort of complete theory of consciousness and explains our purpose and connection to that larger reality. So this was, I found at the time, a sort of fascinating interview. So enjoy, and we will get Thomas Campbell back on.
There's things that go on there, and then you get to have another go at this virtual reality. And why would you do that? Because the purpose of our being here is to grow, is to evolve our consciousness. We're part of an evolving natural system called consciousness, and we are part of its strategy to evolve. So we kind of we have a life, we learn, we grow, we make decisions, we have free will. You can't have consciousness without free will. Can't have free will without consciousness. So here's our point, is to, by the choices that we make with our free will, we're to grow the quality of our consciousness, we're to evolve. And in the book, being a physicist, I talk about, the quality of consciousness means a consciousness with a lower entropy. Entropy just means more organized, less random, less disorganized. So that's what we're doing. We're part of the larger system strategy for evolution. We are evolving these chunks of the whole that are us. So that's the point. And that's why we go round and round in this cycle, because evolution is an open-ended, ongoing thing.
Okay, and could you swap the word consciousness for the word the universe, for example?
No, the universe is our physical reality. That's the physical universe. Our universe is the virtual reality that we live in, and it has its own rule set that defines it, and that's what scientists do. They dig out the rules from the rule set. How does this work? Gravity and force and those sorts of things. Biology. All of these are parts of the expressions of the rule set. So our universe is a very limited thing. It's just this virtual reality. It's like saying World of Warcraft or The Sims. Each one of those are universes for the Sims characters or the World of Warcraft characters. And our universe, what we think of as a physical universe, is kind of it's kind of the place where we live. It's our virtual reality game that we play in. Those words physical and non-physical, which are such strong words.
Yeah.
When you talk to scientists and you say, well, the non-physical this and that, and they go, oh, baloney, there is no such thing as non-physical. It turns out that there's really no difference. The next higher level of relativity tells you that it's, whether it's something that looks to be physical or non-physical, is all in the perspective of the viewer. So when you are in this virtual reality, it appears physical. When you're in the dream reality, that appears physical, and this universe isn't. So whichever reality your awareness is in, that's what seems physical, and the other ones don't. So there really is no physical or non-physical. It's all just virtual realities, and they appear physical when that's where your awareness is centered.
Okay, well, I'm conscious of an ad break coming up, so I might have to interrupt you in this question. I don't want to do that, but knowing what you know, for example, when someone becomes aware that they are this consciousness, then they're more than their body. What empowerment can that do to someone's life? I mean, if life's not going very easy for you, if you're things aren't going as planned. yet you're saying it's a sort of virtual reality in a sense, then you could sort of take a step back and say, okay, well, actually, if this is not as real as it perceives to be, maybe I can make some changes and get the movie to go the way I want it to go.
Well, I'll try to answer very quickly because I know your break's almost on you. And that is, it's always helpful to know what the game is that you're playing. If you're out on the field and are clueless as to what the game is, then you're not going to be a very good player. So yes, it is helpful to understand the larger nature of reality, what your place is in it, how it connects to you. It enables you to be more effective in evolving the quality of your consciousness. And from that derives generally a lot of very good things.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break now. After the break, the phone lines will be open for you to speak to physicist and author of the My Big Toe trilogy, Thomas W. Campbell, or share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666 or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. International listeners outside the UK may Skype the show by adding the More Show Live. And remember, you can also reach us on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back. I'm joined by physicist and author of the My Big Toe trilogy the books, Thomas Campbell. Thomas, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kevin.
Now, Thomas, the trilogy of books, My Big Toe. Just tell us about a sort of very brief, high-level description of what the trilogy is all about.
Okay. Basically, it's a theory, or you might say a model of reality. Okay, it's a theory of everything. That means it needs to explain, it needs to explain everything. It needs to explain the physical, the non-physical, the objective, the subjective, metaphysics and physics. All of those things are explainable. Let's see, it's a how-to book in the sense that it's how to experience a larger reality, how to evolve the quality of your consciousness. It's also what is reality? Why is it? And, how does it work? How do we relate to it? How does it relate to us? So it's a general understanding of the nature of yourself, your mission here, your purpose, and how that connects to the larger reality of consciousness, and how that larger reality of consciousness connects to this physical reality. And so that's why we get metaphysics and physics both out of this one overarching theory. Einstein spent the last 20 years of his life working on a thing called, it was a toe. Oh, let me think of his name. Unified field theory is what he called it. And basically, he was trying to unite quantum mechanics and relativity because they both have assumptions that contradict each other. And he knew that meant there was another larger understanding that could be an overarching understanding for both of those. Both of them were subsets of something bigger. And of course, he was right. And this theory, My Big Toe, is that superset. It does derive both relativity and quantum mechanics from one set of logical understandings, but it also derives, much about theology and philosophy and metaphysics and the paranormal and all that sort of thing drops out of it, as well as physics.
Well, that's right. I mean, they're fascinating trilogy of books that you've done. And, there's also your theory of everything as well. And it seems to cover everything in a sense, doesn't it?
Yes, that's, and we've been looking, I very much would be interested in finding things that it doesn't cover, because that's how theories grow. If you find something that doesn't fit, then either your theory is incomplete or, you need to add to it. You need to adjust it, or come up with different ways of thinking about things, different paradigms. So that's how it grows. No theory is kind of a dead and done thing unless it's a very simple, trivial theory. It's a live, growing theory, and I know I learn more all the time as I go through it, and I suspect other people do as well.
Well, that's right. I mean, your work that you've done must have changed you as a person so much, and also, I mean, you can also embrace your own teachings in these books and apply. You must have applied them your own way of being as well.
Yes, of course. I'm a very different person. You talk to me and I'm talking kind of like a scientist, and it's all logical and it's all process and that sort of thing. But actually, you find out that evolving your consciousness means becoming love. So it's not just about intellectual process. It's about you changing, growing up, evolving at the being level as opposed to at the intellectual level. So it's very much about the individual and how that individual is. It's about getting rid of your fear, getting rid of your ego, growing up, becoming love. That's the key. That's the key thing that falls out, logically from this theory.
It makes you think, doesn't it, that, we are consciousness, we are part of this bigger consciousness, we are having an experience on its behalf for it and it for us maybe as well. And like you just said there, we're here to learn unconditional love in a sense. I wonder why in that reality of where the consciousness is, that it doesn't know that love anyway. Why would it have to go through these processes of, making up these lives in a sense? We come down here for example to choose a life from what your work tells me, and we choose our scenario, and we go through certain experiences with free will there all the time from what I've read. Why would we need to go through that just to learn what maybe it knows already, or maybe does it know this unconditional love, or is there just something better to do on a Saturday night?
Well, the larger consciousness system is not a done, complete, and finished thing. It's a work in process. Okay, it's think of this large digital information system, and how it evolves is by decreasing its entropy. That means it turns random bits into bits that are more useful, that are configured, that are structured. Okay, if you just have randomness in your bits, you have no information. Information is created by structuring the bits in some meaningful, significant way. So what it's doing is it's taking potential bits and getting them structured in a meaningful way. You say, well, doesn't it already know all the meaning? And that is, no, it's evolving just as we are. We're it and it's us. So the whole system is evolving at the same time. It's just a natural system. It's not done. It's not perfect. It's a growing, evolving thing, and we're a part of that evolution. Now, there is no doubt an executive part of this system that does the control, like the operating system. If we talk about a computer, then the executive part of the computer is the operating system, which gives instructions of how everything else works. Well, there's an executive part of this system that understands a whole lot more than we do, but yet there's a lot more bits. There's a lot more potential that it can grow and structure to be love, to grow up. So it's not that there's pieces of it that are very grown, but the whole thing is still evolving. So you have to think of it not as a fixed thing that's already done, and why does it have to do this? Think of it as a work in progress of trying to develop as much structure and as much as much information that's useful, and that does equate, we don't have the time to do that logical derivation, but that does equate to becoming love, unconditional love.
Well,
So think of this unfinished thing that's
yeah.
trying to do this on a grander and larger scale, and we're part of that process.
Hey, I love what you're saying, all right? I think the way you've just put that, it was one of those moments that, I get it. I get it. So I thank you for that as well. I've never quite heard it in those terms before, neither.
Yeah, well,
Um,
many people have that sense that it's a done deal. It's just as good as it can get. It is love. So, what's it doing playing, in the dirt with us and growing all this? And it's not the point. It's a big system, and it's trying to take as much of the potential as it can generate and have that potential grow up into love. You don't decrease entropy just by, oh, just by ordering it. There's
No.
nothing. If you take what you already know and then reproduce it, that doesn't decrease entropy any.
No.
That's not really growth. If you have all the letters of the alphabet and then you just copy them and now you have 2 copies of the letters of the alphabet, you haven't reduced entropy. You haven't done something new. You haven't created information out of randomness. You haven't created love. So the
Right.
process has to continue to evolve itself, and that's what it is it's doing, and we're part of that process.
Yeah, and if you look at the word love and apply that to the experiences that we go throughout our life, there's the good, there's the bad, but there's also all those bits in between as well. And really, it's like it's sort of teaching you on a scale of say 1 to 10, 1 being very much not love, and 10 being as sort of unconditional love, and we experience those feelings all the time with all the choices that we make, and yet it's an actual feeling process rather than a mental conceptualization of it.
Exactly. I tend to break things into two ways of being, and one of them is the intellectual level of our being, and the other one is what I call the being level. And where the growth takes place is at the being level. The intellectual level is where most of us, many of us, spend all of our time. That's where we do our judging, our assessing, our analyzing, our collection of facts, and so on. But that's not where the growth takes place. You can read my books, and if all you do is read the words and memorize them, you may not grow a bit from them. You may not learn anything important that way. You just learn a lot of intellectual stuff so that you can sound like you're knowledgeable. But to actually get it, you have to get it at the being level. You have to change. You have to become a different person. And that's not as easy as just learning facts.
No, but that's the evolution of the consciousness of yourself, though.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, there's so much we could talk about with your work, and I feel that we've just barely scratched the surface here, and I do apologize for that because, what I thought what you had to say there though was needed to be said. So okay, we operate then in your opinion in a non-physical reality, a sort of matrix in a sense. I mean, it feels very real, but there is that matrix conceptualization to it as well. So what is the possibilities that we can do in this physical reality, knowing what you've just said there? Are we saying that no matter what situation we may find ourselves in, we can reinvent ourselves at any time to be the next grandest version of ourselves?
Yes, that's true. I mean, you're here to grow up. You're here to experience and make choices. This is the way life works. Stuff happens and we get to deal with it. That's kind of boils it down to as small a bit as I can think of. Stuff happens and we get to deal with it. And we're all very, very focused on the stuff that happens. We want to make sure that stuff that happens to us is the stuff we want to happen. So we spend all of our energy trying to manipulate and control what is going to happen to us. We analyze all the possibilities and make sure that we get in line and fix things the best we can to come out the way we want. That's focused on the stuff that happens. But where the real importance is, where the growth is how you deal with it. It's the choices you make when you react to and deal with that stuff that happens. What do you choose to do? Do you choose to react with anger? Do you choose to express yourself through your ego and your fear? Or do you choose to express yourself through your caring, your compassion, your love? That's the important part. So, I'd say one of the most important things for people to do is to stop focusing all of their attention and energy on manipulating the stuff that happens to be the way they want, and rather start focusing on how do you deal with it, all this stuff that happens, and then just let the stuff that happens. You don't have to control it. Just let it come and deal with it as best you can, and then let it go. That's another way of saying live in the present, be here now.
Okay. Well, do you think if you can answer the question, why am I doing what I'm doing, or why do I do what I do, along with, okay, what is it that I would love to experience next, and rather than saying, I want to experience that, say you already are it, because then that attracts it to you to say you already have it, even though you may not already have it. But it's saying that you are it, or I am a talk show host. I am a model, or I am something. Does that sort of manifest it to you quicker as well?
Yes, well, that has to do with your intent. You see, one of the attributes of this larger consciousness system and our virtual reality here, this is a learning lab for us to grow up. And one of the feedback systems that we have is that we get to modify future probable reality. In other words, what is most likely to happen next? We get to modify that probability. How likely is it to happen next based on our intent? So if we can focus our intent powerfully, clearly, then we tend to change the probability of what's likely to happen. So that's just a fact. Now we kind of know that if you look around and think about it, you know that people who are very positive and very up generally have a lot of positive things happen, and that people are down and, oh, woe is me, everything happens to me. A lot of stuff happens to them. We have the placebo effect. The doctor tells the patient that, these pills are new magic, pills, latest research, they're really going to help him out. When in reality, they're just sugar pills or sawdust or something, and it actually helps him out. Why? Because you've created a positive intent in that patient. And that's how we heal with our minds. We use our mind to get rid of the bad stuff and help people be healthy. What we're doing is modifying future reality with our intent. So that's just part of the feedback we have there. So in this way, there's several other ways. There's 4 or 5 ways in which we actually get to influence our reality. I wouldn't go so far as say we just create it, wholly. We're in it and a part of it, but we do generate a great deal of what happens to us. It's because of ourselves and our intent. So yes, if you want to become a radio host and you start thinking about that, you have that intent. Well, it's not just a matter of sitting in your bedroom with an intent. If you have that intent, you're going to go out and start doing those things that put you in line to get there. Maybe you'll get a degree in communications, or maybe you'll get a degree in in radio or something like that.
Right.
So you'll start working to it because you have that intent for it. Also, you're biasing the probabilities in your favor of it happening.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to take a short break now. The phone lines are now open for you to speak to physicist and author of the My Big Toe trilogy, Thomas W. Campbell, or to share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666 or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. Listeners outside the UK may Skype the show by adding the More Show Live, or you may choose to interact with us on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back. I'm still joined by physicist and author of the My Big Toe trilogy, Thomas W. Campbell. We are live and the lines are now open for you to call and speak to our guest, or you can share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666 or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. International listeners outside the UK may Skype the show by adding the More Show Live, and you can choose to interact with us on Facebook and Twitter. Okay, Thomas, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Let's wrap it up. Huh?
Yeah. Well, let's try to. let's try to.
Yeah.
We've had a number of texts in as well, and
the
we'll get
More
to
Show
those
is
as well just after the break. We'll get to the texts just after the phone call that we've got on the line now. So, caller, are you there?
Yes. Hello, I'm there.
Hey, welcome to the show. And where are you calling from?
My name is Paul, and I'm calling from Hamburg, Germany.
Okay, Paul. What's your question, please?
Actually, I have 2 questions, if that is allowed. And the first question, it was introduced by the song that you just played, which was called Driver's Seat, I think. And I have a question about basically who's in my driving seat and in charge of the driving. As I have understood Tom from his talks on YouTube and the books that he has wrote, I wonder how I can experience this individuated unit of consciousness, the IUC, that he talks about, and how that relates to the experience packet that is my earthly identity.
Okay, Thomas?
Okay, I think there was at least 3 questions in there, but they're all related, so we'll try to do them all. Who's in the driver's seat was the first one, and basically I would say that you are, and when I talk about you, I'm not talking about your body, but I'm talking about you as an individuated unit of consciousness. You are in the driver's seat in as much as you have free will. You get to make choices, and whether you evolve or de-evolve depends completely on the choices that you make. Because you have free will, I think that puts you squarely in the driver's seat. Now, you're not the creator of the virtual reality as far as the fundamental creator of the virtual reality. That would be the larger consciousness system. But so you're not in that driver's seat. I guess there's several drivers here in this thing. But as far as your own being, your own person, your own consciousness, you have free will, and there's really nothing that you were forced to do. You can evolve or you can de-evolve, and it's all your choice. You get to do that. Then one of the next questions was, well, how do I get to experience this larger consciousness system? And in a way, you are experiencing it. It is, it's there, it's available to you. People have this idea that they need to learn something, some technique, some magic word, some thing that will help them suddenly have an experience of the larger consciousness system. Well, you can take drugs that'll do that, but that's a very useless and generally negative way to go about exploring the larger consciousness system, because that just gives you an experience. So if you just want to experience it rather than really explore it and understand it, then a drug will blast you there, but you don't learn much. It's like you don't experience Germany by flying over it at 30,000 feet in an airplane. It's just not the same. So I do not recommend drugs as a way to experience it. What I do recommend is your doorway into this consciousness system is your consciousness, your awareness. The first thing you need to learn to do is to get rid of all the noise, all the chatter that's in your mind all the time. And that is your ego, all the analysis, all of the judging, all of that chatter goes on. What you're going to do, what you're going to, after, when are you going to bed tonight? When do you have to get up? What do you have to do in the morning? There's all this chatter going on. And meditation will teach you how to quiet that. And when you can get rid of all that chatter and you can let go of your physical senses, then you become a point of consciousness floating in the void. That is you experiencing your own consciousness. From that point of this, what I call point consciousness, the door is open. You can go anywhere, do anything that you have an intent to express. So if what you want to do there is heal someone who needs your healing, that's a good place to do it. If you'd rather travel, like remote view, see what's going on in your neighborhood and the other side of the world, you can do that too. You just have to express an intent at the being level, and it happens. So it's really very simple. It's not a hard thing to do. The hard thing to do is to unlearn all the behavior that gets in your way. There's nothing new that you really have to do. There's no secret to it other than just get all the noise out of your mind and then have a clear, focused intent, and then be open to what happens. The next thing to tell you is that as soon as something happens or nothing happens, don't immediately start to judge it. You see, that's jumping right back into the ego. Just do it until you have lots of experience with it so you can make an intelligent judgment of it. Eventually you will need to judge it, but only after you've gathered enough experience. People make the big mistake. They want to go out and talk to some non-physical being, and they go there and they hear a hello, how are you? And they suddenly jump into was that me? Who was that? Is that outside of me or is that inside me? And suddenly their analysis and judging takes over, and it ruins the whole thing. They they're no longer able to be open and connect with it because their ego is now in the road, in the way, doing all the judging and analyzing. So you just need to let that go, experience, and let it come to you rather than you chasing it.
Right. Okay. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your call.
Yes, no problem.
Thank
Good
you.
show, by
Take
the way.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Paul.
See you.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm so glad he asked those questions, actually, because that's just sort of summarized some of the stuff that I was, would have been going on in my mind after this interview and would have been thinking about as well. So, great questions there as well. So, okay, you mentioned there about the sort of, idea of teleportation in a sense, within this sort of physical reality frame. But, is there a possible connection here with some of, people's UFO experiences as well?
Yes, there can be a connection. I suspect that, and I don't know a whole lot about, ufology, and I have not followed that closely. So, you have to realize, take me with a grain of salt. I don't know a whole lot of that information, but I suspect that much of our interaction with UFOs is at the consciousness level. It's not at the physical level. Now, it very may well appear to be physical, but remember, what's physical and what's non-physical is just the perspective of the observer. So if you are in this reality and observing this physical reality, but at the same time your mind is tapped into a different data stream. Remember, this reality is also virtual. It's just data. You tapped into another data stream, then you will see other things that aren't native to here, you might say. So we use the UFO phenomena as kind of a metaphor for a lot of things that we don't understand.
That's right.
So when we see things, when we interact with things in a larger consciousness system that aren't here in this physical virtual reality, in other words, we tap into a different data stream, we tend to immediately categorize all those things as UFOs because we have this belief that everything is physical. The universe contains all of reality, and if I see something that's not here, then it must be from someplace else in the universe, therefore it's a UFO. That's just a very narrow way of perceiving the world. So I think much of the UFO sightings and things that happen have to do with connections in consciousness, more so than physical things here. Now, that doesn't mean that none of it has ever been a physical thing here. I'm just saying in general, I think that's a large part of it. And even when you have 6 or 7 or 10 people together seeing the same things, we're all netted. You can easily communicate via telepathy with other people. It's you can hear and feel and see what's in their minds. It's just a matter of connecting to that data stream. Remember, this is a virtual reality, not a physical reality. It's just data and information, and it's a matter of where your information source is, what you are connected to.
Well, that's right. I mean, could the information source be coming from a parallel universe, for example?
It could be coming from all sorts of different places, yes. And I think that does happen. I don't know that I'd use the terminology parallel universe, but it could come from, we here in this physical virtual reality are just a tiny speck of what's out there that's alive and well and learning and growing just as we are. So we're just a little piece of it. We tend to think that our physical universe is all there is, and it isn't all there is. There's lots of different virtual realities going on. They're not necessarily parallel. They're on their own path doing their own thing. But there's many sources of data from the larger consciousness system besides just this data feed, if you will, that's inside of our physical universe.
So it's kind of like, above this consciousness that we speak of right now, having this experience, we're having an experience for it, shall I say. Above this consciousness, there could be other levels.
Oh, yes. There's lots of other levels and other reality frames, other virtual realities. We're not the only game in town. We're just one among many. And you can, we use the word teleport, but it's just a matter of shifting to a different data stream. The data stream that defines this physical reality is, we connect to that, and that's why we see this physical reality that we're in. We get this universe. But then there are other data streams that are available as well. You can go to databases. You can look at that future probable reality we talked about. You can go into, the past realities, which are databases that will show you things that have happened and things that could have happened but didn't, and all the probability that it might have happened. So all of that is just available as information. This is a big information system. And there's lots of information available. You just use your intent, like the query. When you query Google, you put something, you put a query into Google and back comes information.
Yes.
That's the way the larger consciousness system works. And if you have a very broad, nebulous query, you get a very broad, nebulous bunch of stuff back. If you have very sharply defined query, you tend to get just the information you want, and you have to get rid of all that noise. If you have a very noisy query, then you get a noisy response. It's really a simple process.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends where your ego is in all this as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ego is an interesting thing. If you get rid of the ego is a derivative of fear. Fear is the opposite of love. So you have fear, the fear generates ego, and often it generates a lot of beliefs. If you get rid of the fear, the ego, the beliefs, what you're left with is love.
Absolutely. And with no judgments neither. Now another thing that this comes to, which you've mentioned the word as well, is oneness. We are all on the same net. We are all connected. If only we could understand this connection between us, we wouldn't do the things we're doing to each other.
That's true. And we are connected to all consciousness. It's not just the consciousness growing here on planet Earth, not just the consciousness in our universe, and not just, it's the consciousness everywhere. All parts of the larger consciousness system, all the pieces of it, we are chunks of this information process, and we're all netted with each other. And we can focus that with our intent to, that's why we don't hear, a million voices all at once, because our intent is focused on a particular data stream. But we can manipulate that data stream with our intent.
But
yes, we are all one.
Yes.
That is literally a fact. It's just like, you say we're all one but separate. It's sort of like your body is all one, but your hands are separate. You say, or your head's separate, your feet are separate, but they're not really. It's just all one body. Well, that's sort of the way we are. It's all one consciousness system, but we're pieces of it.
Yeah, and no life, I suppose, if I use the word when it's downloaded, or when, you go back home to have a life review, for example, because, guests have come on to talk about that process as well. No life is wasted, no matter, even if it was some terrible things that you committed. I'm sure there's some sort of process for, maybe the self-judgment is the process of the whole idea of karma. But whatever you've been through, or whatever you've had to do, whatever you've done, I'm sure, yes, like you say in your work, we're here to evolve the idea of love, but no life is a waste in a sense.
No, wherever you are, and it doesn't matter where that is, and it doesn't matter where you've been, wherever you are, you can start from there, and making better choices, you can grow, you can evolve, and there's no limit to that. So it's not like you get to a point and you're hopeless. Wherever it is, you can at that point start getting rid of fear, getting rid of ego, and becoming love, and that's growth. You're headed up. So there's not a point where there's nothing you can do. You've dug yourself such a deep hole that you can't get out of it. It's just that if you've created so much fear and so much ego, sometimes it's hard then to make better choices. But it's just a matter of having the intent to do it, having the intent to grow up, and not being lazy. Work at it a little bit, and you'll find that it'll all just come along wonderfully.
And don't be worried about people's judgment on you and all that. The past is the past. You're in the moment. To be in the moment is the most powerful thing to be. Not the future, but the moment right now.
Exactly. Let all that stuff that happens, and part of that stuff that happens is other people's opinion of you. You just kind of let all that go. Just make your best decisions you can, and let all the chips fall where they may. Eventually, you'll end up doing fine if that's just your attitude.
Okay. So how does one find out more information about your toe, for example, your book trilogy as well, and your information?
Okay, well, the books, it is a trilogy, My Big Toe. You can find them at my website, which is www.mybigtoe.com, or you can pick them up at Amazon or from Baker and Taylor. That's a big international distributor that'll get at the bookstores and things. It's available in Germany now. Book one has just gone to print in Germany. It's the only one other than English that it's in. Another source is to go to Google Books. If you go to Google Books, you'll find that you can read it there for free. It won't cost you a dime. Everything that I have, I put out for free. All of my videos, I've got about 200 videos at YouTube, and of course they're all free. And the one I would recommend that you start with is one called Calgary Workshop. It was done about a year or so ago. I went to Calgary, gave a 3-day workshop. Friday's introduction, Saturday is theory, and Sunday is application, like remote viewing, healing, out of body, that sort of thing. Application, what's the larger consciousness system like, and how do you get there? So that's kind of the primer, the basics. Now, that's a lot of time. These are not short videos. Actually, each one of those days is broken into, I think, Saturday and Sunday, both broken into 3 videos each.
Right.
But that will give you the basics. And then you can buzz around through all the rest of it, and you can find all sorts of subjects. Like when I was in Atlanta, I did an hour or 2 on love, and I've got one that's going to be put up there in the next 3 weeks or so. Was a 3-day program in Spain. That's coming. So lots of stuff is out there available. Google Thomas Campbell, and you'll get there. Go to YouTube and put in TWCJR44. Or just Thomas Campbell, and it'll get you there.
Okay, well, we'll put all those links on our website as well. And Thomas Campbell, I just want to say it's been fascinating. It's been a great interview, and just thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, you're very welcome, Kevin. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a lot of fun.
Take care. Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily updates on the shows, and you may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk. And do like us on Facebook for all the latest updates. So, until next time, be safe.